Good afternoon, everyone. Get our council members here to the table. We'll get this meeting started here in just a second. All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the special meeting, Destin City Council, September 13, 2018 at 5 p.m. I'll call this to order at this time. Right now I'd like to ask Chaplain Larry Carter from the Sheriff's Department to come in and lead us in invocation.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we thank you for the wonderful benefits, things that thou hast given us. We thank you for the men and women who lead our city. Continue to give them insight and wisdom with all the matters that are put before them this evening. I want to thank you also, Father, to look out over the brothers and sisters of like faith in South Carolina, North Carolina, and all those affected by Hurricane Florence. Those city governments and those councilmen and women have their hands full. Grant them peace. May there be no loss of life. Now guide us in all things. We carefully give you the honor, glory, and praise. In thy most precious name we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. The whole purpose of this, new business negotiation and franchise agreement with Gulf Power. What I think, if it pleases the council, is we'll hear from Shep, right, or the attorney representing the city of Destin on this negotiation first. Then I'll probably open it up to hear from the public second, and at that point we can make motions, have discussions, stuff like that. Does that sound good with everyone else? Or would you rather have the public comment after a motion's made and before a vote is taken? I think the way I got it planned out would probably be the most beneficial.
I say just do the presentation, then allow public comment. That's probably the best.
All right, that's what we'll do. All right, Shep.
It's automatic. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, citizens. I'm glad to be back here in beautiful Destin. Thank you very much for having me. I think I can start this pretty quickly. As directed at the previous council meeting, we sent the proposed franchise agreement that y'all voted for us to send as a counter proposal to Gulf Power. It might be useful to recap very briefly everything that the city has given from our starting positions in these talks with Gulf Power and talk about what Gulf has offered back. We asked for some reasonable concessions regarding undergrounding that Gulf would take, would give us the same provisions that other major utilities in Florida give, that they'd use the same construction techniques. Gulf wouldn't do anything like that. We dropped that in the last proposal we sent them. We asked for rate protection against their already high rates. We asked for protection against increases. They said, nope, can't do that. We dropped that from the supplemental agreement. We dropped the supplemental agreement altogether. We asked for some other stuff too, support for a new high school and some other things, support for renewable energy and sustainability initiatives. No, that's gone too. We asked for protection against the the customers of all of Gulf Power Company having to pay for cost overruns associated with the Kemper and Vogel plants of Gulf sister companies. No, they wouldn't do that either. We dropped that. They asked us to agree to limit our ability to sell, limit the city's ability to sell the electric assets if you were to exercise the purchase option. That's not in the current franchise agreement. The city agreed in the franchise that we sent them last week after you voted it out that we would agree to that we'd limit it to 5 years. They haven't really given us much of anything, candidly. So we sent that over to them last week, and they sent back what I believe was transmitted to you earlier this week, a proposal whereby they would further limit the city's ability to purchase beyond what's already in the franchise. The current franchise says that the city would have the right to purchase the electric plant and other property within the limits of the franchise necessarily used under or in connection with the franchise hereby granted, or such part of such property as the grantor may desire to purchase at a value to be fixed in accordance with the provisions of the arbitration statute. They now want to, they've sent back to you a proposal that would take away your ability to buy power plants, which is irrelevant because they don't have any power plants here. The ability to buy transmission lines, which probably isn't a really big deal because you probably don't want to buy those. But they also want to take away your ability to buy substations. Substations are part of the distribution system, folks. They're integral. And the real practical upshot is you got 3 substations here. If you have to go out and build new ones, it's going to cost you between $2 and $4 million a piece, as opposed to buying existing ones at replacement cost, new, less depreciation, plus any going concern value assigned to them. It's an extra ask that they sent back. Additionally, whereas the existing franchise, and the existing franchise has actually existed since 1996 because it vested 10 years after the original franchise was executed. They now want to, and we asked for 2 years, they asked for 5. We've had some, pardon? They asked for, well, they asked for 10. We sent, the offer we sent last week was 2. Did I say 10? Well, we sent an offer at 2. We've had some conversations about 5. And they would limit your ability to exercise to solely the 5th anniversary and the 15th anniversary, not a vesting right to purchase. So that is kind of where we stand. Further, there in the transmittal letter from Mr. Griffin, he did point out that that anything that might get done is dependent on the sign-off by NextEra Energy, the ultimate company that's in the process of buying the common stock of Gulf Power from its current owner, Southern Company. And you're looking, candidly, you're looking down a couple of loaded barrels of a shotgun that's aimed at you that are going to go off next Friday in terms of losing your purchase option. If you lose the purchase option, you've lost all your bargaining strength, and in my opinion, you've lost your ability to protect the citizens and businesses of Destin against paying electric rates that are not quite at the top, but among the very highest in Florida. So if you can't get that done, then you've got another problem. All this leads back around to the resolution that Mr. Burns drafted to exercise the purchase option. Absent an agreeable franchise agreement with a fully warranted, certified, backstopped, executed franchise agreement coming from Gulf, I don't think there's any way you can protect yourselves without exercising the option.
Real quick, so you have 3 options tonight. You could vote to execute the resolution that's been provided to you previously and it's provided as part of the agenda packet tonight. Option 2 would be to accept the offer from Gulf Power that they sent in on this last round, or option 3 would be to continue to negotiate with Gulf Power and try to come to an agreement before the expiration, which is next Friday, I believe. Is that the correct date, Chef?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so those are the 3 options you have before you tonight, Council.
Done?
That's my direct presentation, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Just,
Question?
yeah. Chef, how valuable would you say our electric franchise is, City of Destin?
well into the 9 figures.
Okay.
Here's a way of looking at it, Councilmember Morgan. Net present value of discounted cash flow, net present value of discounted cash flow, covering all the operating costs, including replacing the franchise revenues. Mr. Harrington and Mr. Warren, and I know some people have some doubts about them, but between them, they've got 80-odd years of experience doing this kind of stuff in the state of Florida. Their estimates were that you could charge, if the city were to take it over and charge Gulf Power's rates, it would throw off roughly $6.97 million, $6.8 million a year. The present discounted value of $7 million a year over 30 years at a modest discount rate, say 5%, is 210. At 5%, it's probably 120, 130, 140 million dollars.
Sure. So
that's top of my head ballparking, but that's a way of looking at it. And of course, it's going to exist beyond 30 years.
So in a few words, the city of Destin's franchise with Gulf Power on our electric system is very valuable.
It's very, very valuable. Yes, sir.
Do you think that Gulf Power has negotiated in good faith with the city of Destin?
That's a tough question. The good faith or bad faith is a question of fact. I think, candidly, I think that the folks who have come to us have done the best they could with the marching orders that they were given from higher up. I'm not real happy vicariously as your attorney trying to get maximum value for the businesses and citizens of Destin. I'm not real happy with the fact that we keep giving and giving and giving and giving, and they haven't given the city anything at all of meaningful value. They haven't given anything on undergrounding. They haven't given anything on rate protection. They haven't given the city anything of meaningful value. I wouldn't want to characterize that as bad faith. Well, I mean, what's bad faith? Bad faith is like, outright lying or something like that. But no. So.
Thanks.
Sure.
In that line of thought, so they wanted 30 years and they agreed to 15. That's not giving anything? From there, we got that, a 15-year franchise agreement. They wanted 30 and they agreed to 15, which we asked for.
It's hard to put a meaningful dollar value on it.
Okay, same thing. You've been doing this a long time, that they wanted no ability to buy
right
in the future, have a clause in there to allow us the option to buy it, and yet they gave us an opportunity after they agreed to 5 years and then again at 15, correct? So that's,
yes, sir.
That's making a compromise. So,
yep.
So they acted in good faith on those issues, right?
Yes, on those issues, yes, sir.
Okay.
I didn't say.
For some clarification, actually, they did agree to that term being in there, but then they changed that provision up in the last round, the last minute.
Right,
so.
and they went from, because after 5 years, what you guys were negotiating was the ability each year thereafter to exercise that right, and they just said that's a bad business model for them. They could do 5 years. They even, I think, said they would do 10. Every 5 years, allow that to be done. And as we all know, that if we're going to pull the trigger on this, and if we're going to do due diligence with forensic analysis and put together a product that we can sell to our consumers, that we got to start that process way before the 5th year if we're going to do it the right way, because we're under the gun now because it wasn't done the right way. As far as evaluating what it's the cost analysis and stuff like that. So what's interesting to me is I'm the mayor and I don't get a say in this vote right here at the dais. And I think there's a lot of people that live here that probably feel the same way. And probably the majority of the people would be against this. And so there's a wrong way and a right way to approach this process. And if we have that right to purchase, I would like to see us, because I'm open to it. But I would like to be able to know exactly what it's, not exactly, but have a real clear idea what it's going to cost, a real clear idea on the risk, put together a package from the dais here that we speak to our constituents and say, regardless of the propaganda in the past and the negotiation, here's the product and this is why we think that we need to purchase this thing. And in that process, be honest and open with people and say, we're basically going to tax you through your power bill. Because we want to underground 98, we're thinking about underground in the town center, and we don't have the money to do it, and if we buy this thing, we'll be able to generate enough money to feed the animal that we call the city of Destin. So, you know, I have no problem with any of that. I have a problem with the dialogue that they're the evil ones and we've done everything we could, and I think we have done everything we could.
Point of order, Mayor. Are we discussing now?
I'll give you a chance.
Are we opening this up to discussion now, or are we taking questions from Chef, public comment, then discussion like you said at the beginning of the meeting?
No problem. So that's what I'm worried about, because I'm only hearing this like slanted, tainted one story about we gave all, they gave none, and I don't think that's a correct picture to paint.
I think you and I are on the same page of let's vet this thoroughly and publicly for however long it takes, a couple of years, 3 years. I think that is absolutely the right way to do it. And the franchise that the council voted out last week to send them would let you do that. It would bind the city not to exercise the option for 2 years, or not to exercise the right to purchase. It's actually an important point that it's not an option. It is a right to purchase. That's the language of the agreement itself. And
so the response you got back that we looked at still accomplishes that, correct? If we were to agree and sign a franchise agreement as it's written just now after we sent what we sent to them, that you sent to them on Monday, and now that we've had their response, do we still have the right to purchase under that if we were to agree?
Limited, yes, limited as they sent it back to exactly 5 years and exactly 15 years. Oh, yeah.
Well, you're going to pay for those one way or the other.
Well, it does make a difference in how you pay for it. If they get to keep them, you have to build new ones. That is going to be a different cost calculus than if you get to buy them pursuant to an arbitrated value.
Nobody's made that cost calculus at this time yet, right?
Oh, sure, that's correct. I can tell you a new one is going to cost more than replacement cost, new less depreciation. That I can tell you with confidence.
Right. Mayor, the trick is that if you just put enough handcuffs and make the process so expensive by adding in these last-minute little tweaks, we'll never be able to practically exercise it in the future, which makes it basically meaningless from a leverage standpoint. I understand that you feel that they've given a lot. What exactly? Well,
I just want a balanced discussion.
Well, I've been in the middle of this for the last 6 months, and candidly, it is not inaccurate to characterize the fact that why would we, what do we get as the city and citizens of Destin by allowing them to basically carve out and truncate our purchase provision? What are we getting in exchange? And if we don't get anything, why would we agree to it?
Well, I think we'd be foolish to think that they're unwilling sellers in the first place, and they're going to agree to any. It's not going to be a pretty process whether we, no matter how we approach it, is all I'm saying. It's going to be a battle from day one to the end. You're trying to. It's just like if you're trying to buy my boat and I don't want to sell it, it's not going to be a friendly transaction. So, I mean, that's an argument that you're making, but it's almost a mute argument because it's going to happen one way or the other, whether it's in the franchise agreement or not.
Right, but one way or another is going to be actually being able to, we need this as from a leverage standpoint. Basically, if I'm walking around with a 10-foot club right now, and why would I agree to shorten it by 5 foot in the future when I can't, there's no real motivation to do that. And the only way that we can protect our citizens, in my opinion, is to preserve as much of this purchase provision as we possibly can. And what they've put in the last minute does not help us in the future. And when Nextera shows up, they're going to get us. And we're not going to have a good position to argue from a leverage standpoint when NextEra gets control of this company. Because, like I said, last meeting, they're paying 29 times price to earnings ratio. They're paying such a premium. I don't think it's reasonable to think that we're ever going to have our price rates go down. So I have to assume that we need to preserve as much of our right to walk away to save our customers and our citizenry as much as we can in the future. And so this agreement, as it's done right now, doesn't do it. And in the defense of our position that we've taken thus far, I know Gulf Power has said in the past that, well, it's a bad business model to have us possibly exercising the purchase option at any time from year 5 to year 15. They go, oh, that's a bad business model. Well, damn it, it's the, pardon my French, well, it's the business model they've been in since 1996. But you finally got some people on this council that woke up and actually don't have to take everything they throw in our face. And they've been belaboring under this same business model for the same time that we've had the right to exercise the purchase in the city of Destin since 1996, 20 years. If it was a cruddy business model then, why is it a cruddy business model now? What's the difference? So I don't buy that argument. They're doing their best to make sure that we can never actually practically exercise the option in the future. So as it's written right now, I can't support it.
You want to do public comment right now?
Well, Skip Overdyer has called in. You can participate, council members, by phone, and he wanted to add something to your debate before we all turn it over to public comment. If you don't mind.
Go ahead, Skip, and then I'll do Mr. Dixon next.
Participate, council members, by phone, and he wanted to add something to your debate. We'll turn it over to public comment.
Go ahead, Skip, and then I'll do Mr. Dixon.
Okay, so, Rodney and Preble and Gary and I ran for city council this year, and so we all got voted in, and 1,760 people voted for me. I will tell you that of all the people that I talked to when I knocked on their doors, and all the people that I talked to when I at various forums and other meetings that we had, nobody, not one person, I never found anybody that told me or asked me to buy a utility company. They're all happy. They all think that we've done the right thing for the last 30 years. And every time they walk into the living room and turn on the light, it comes on. And that's all they're concerned about. And we're sitting here trying to figure out a way to do the right thing. I think if we're going to do the right thing, we've got to do the right thing by the citizens of Destin. And I don't think that we're going to get a better deal. I know this is not the best deal. I know this is not exactly what we wanted. It never has been. And, every time you go into a negotiation like this, everybody tries to make their position a little bit better. I think Gulf Power has tried to make themselves a little bit better. At the end of the day, I think we're still going to have a good utility company. I think they're going to treat us right. They're still going to take care of us. And yeah, utility rates are going to go up. They always do. I think making my voice known or make my position known. My position is I think we got to stick with Gulf Power, and I would not vote for. I would vote for this this contract, this thing the way it is, and move on down the road. We got a lot of other things to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Skip. Mr. Dixon.
I've got, just a few notes here, and I just want the other council members to think about it a little bit, is that I feel like there's some echo. Well, I know there's some echo in here. I feel like if we go down this road and we vote tonight to do this, I feel like there could be as much as I've seen and heard and everything that's out there as far as this discussion with this matter. I feel like there's probably going to be some sort of a citizen petition to come out against this. And one is that if we do have a citizen's petition come out against this, and we are 6 to 8 months or a year into this process, and we do have that come up, and we've got X amount of money in attorney's fees, you know, and then where we're going to be when that comes to be, if it comes to be. Elections. There could be 4 new individuals sitting up here in 18 months. You know, the fact is that you know, other people may go do other things. I'm termed out. Mr. Mahler's termed out. There could be 4 new people sitting up here that don't want to go this route, but we've got so much money expended in it that what would we do then? The attorney cost is a absolute concern to me, and how much we're going to expend to get to a point that we could be basically turned around on. And you know, I know we talked about the possibility of purchasing this and let other people run it, but you know, as we are here right now, we can't even get our code enforcement in order, and we're talking about the purchase of a utility system. And so those things worry me. I'm not saying I'm completely out with this discussion, but those are very much concerns to me. And I am got to tell you, I'm like Mr. Overdeer. Other than the people that I know are absolutely for it, you know, for one reason or the other, I've heard yet anybody speak anything positive to me about it. In fact, the biggest question I have coming to me is, what are y'all thinking? And so, you know, I'm certainly willing to listen to the discussion tonight and the debate, but, you know, I'm not saying which way I'll go for this, but I will say that I do understand the fact that if we were to tonight to decide to exercise this option, in my opinion, it would only be to further the discussion and to make sure that we continue to be at the table. That's what I would hope. So, thank you.
Clarifications on the legal issue, the petition. Mr. Dixon, we were asked to research that last year, actually early part of this year, and it would not apply in this situation because procurements don't fall under the petition route, so there can't be a referendum on this particular issue. It would just be suggestive. It can't actually be binding.
Okay, so in other words, the citizens, even if they came with the amount of signatures, wouldn't require us to put it on referendum?
It would not a binding referendum for this type of, in the charter, procurements like this don't fall underneath that category. It's very categorical under the statute and the charter, and this particular issue would not fall underneath that. So.
I got Preble and Rodney. Would you like to hear for the people in the room before you guys speak? I kind of got it. I know. I ran my mouth, and I recognize you. Would you guys rather the public speak first, and then I got you, Preble, first, and Rodney second? Is that good? Would anyone like to come up here and address this issue? One at a time, just state your name and where you live. Come on up.
Bob Earl, 408 Primrose Lane. I've lived here before incorporation. I was living in Ohio when they had I think it was the 3rd incorporation vote that actually passed. And I said, no idiot would vote for this because they were saying the government would be cheaper than the county. There's impossible. So everything that the city's done to me has been an imposition on me. When we were in the county, we had a pothole, had a retired colonel across the street. He'd call the county and they'd come fix it. Today, you know, last week they did fix a pothole near my house, finally, but it's been 4 or 5 weeks. Get a tree ordinance for commercial, non-native palm trees, which are a maintenance nightmare, provide no shade, so the temperature in the parking lot goes up. The Destin water users, the city wanted to put a franchise fee on them, which would increase my bill, and say, oh, that's just to manage it. It wasn't. It was a tax increase. I see the Skull Power thing is just another excuse for a tax increase. Doesn't do anybody any good. My neighbor just sold his property and moved to South Walton County because he said he's tired of putting up with, this Destin thing about the power company. So, the less the city council does, the happier I am. And all the people I talk to are the same way. So that's basically my position.
Thank you, Bob. Next. Come on up, Jim.
Jim Wood, 3790 Misty Way. I'm not sure where to start at because y'all haven't made a motion yet. I don't know what I'm supposed to talk about. I will tell you that a few years ago, I'm against buying Gulf Power in any form. I don't care what it looks like. A few years ago, I had average electricity bills in the summertime between $375 and $425. I don't have a pool. So here's my citizen answer. I called Gulf Power. Come to my house to do an energy survey, which they did. I learned that most of my energy was going to my air conditioner. It was old, it wasn't very efficient. So I said, okay, I'll put in a new one, which I did. Cost me a little money. I got a tax break on part of it and a rebate on the other part of it. After a year of my bill being about half what it used to be, I did the flat rate bill, and now I pay $134.23 a month for my electricity. Now my electricity has now gone down 1 cent per kilowatt hour. So when I redo my flat bill next month, it should go down, I think, to about $100 to $115 a month. So I don't need help on electricity. I don't know anybody in this town that wants to buy any part of Gulf Power for any reason. So I don't know why y'all would even contemplate this. I thought I lived in America. I guess maybe I live in the Soviet Union or Russia, because this is bordering on socialism and communism. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Next. Oh. And if you'd like to speak next, just take a seat in the front so you don't get cut off.
Scott Fisher, 8 Merino Point Road, Destin, Florida. I think most of you know me. I did a little negotiation with Gulf Power prior to Mr. Council Member Destin becoming involved with them. And I'm not really too sure how to convince you that you do have an opportunity here. Anytime you take a great risk, you better get things lined up and understand it. And it would be best if the community was behind you. I was just looking at an article out of one of the other publications that's going around the state of Florida on the discussion of the growing monopoly of the power business. Florida Power and Light owns over 5 million, has over 5 million customers. Destin is going to add to that about 10%, maybe 10%. It's going to be a statewide problem. They own the Power Commission. They set the rates. Though they don't do it very well for themselves because 1,000 kilowatt hours in Orlando or where they supply power would cost the resident $99. In Destin, you will pay $131.38, 33% higher. That's what you're talking about here tonight. You want to give the citizens a 30% rate decrease. Now that is if you could run a power company as efficiently as they do. That is a big question. Destin doesn't have the staff, they don't have the people to do it. It's going to be a large job, a big undertaking that each of you are going to have to tighten your belts, because if you can sum up the city of Destin, I think this gentleman did a good job of it, is pretty much a restricted, do-nothing city for as long as it's existed. The tax base is very low, and it isn't because the people don't want it or they don't have the people that could do it. There's a lot of restrictions on the government of Destin, and you know them better than I am, so I'm not going to go through them all. But you're in a tough spot. You're very restricted financially. You're very restricted on having the type of staff you really need to take on a proposition like this. But there's a tremendous opportunity here to increase the value of Destin, reduce the amount people pay for their power bills, and eventually maybe set Destin in a new direction where it is just barely getting by on every issue, from the code department to whatever you want to name, to fill in potholes, to starting to look like a major city or a real city. I know the population here is credited at 13,000, but there's still, 65,000 residential units in this city. I'm not too sure where to go with this. You all have hammered this around. You know what it is. The city of Destin had an opportunity, at least according to our early appraisals of the Gulf Power system, to purchase it for $70 million. If you look at what if you want to set a value for the utility here, you can see what the offer price of $6.48 million when converted to the number of people in the city of Destin, or the percentage of that of the purchase price. It's 3.4%. You're 3.4% of Gulf Power. I hate to say, in every case, Destin is such a small part of these propositions, and that's the reason you're in such a pickle. You don't swing a big hammer. But at the same time, you have an opportunity. And you did have a contract that was written 20 years ago that protected you. And now's the opportunity to use it. At 3.4%, basically, of the $6.4 billion, to me, you can use the present value of money formulas and the cash flows and all of these and figure a price. But to me, the best way to figure a price of a commodity or a business is the purchase price. Someone willing to put up a price and buy it, that's what it's worth. And we just heard that. $6.4 billion is what they're paying for it. Well, if you take that 3.4% that's part of Destin, it's well over that power plant that you're getting ready to turn away is about worth $200 to $220 million. And you could have bought it a year ago for $70 million. Now, somehow or another, I don't care how inefficient the city of Destin might be, or that voters of Destin might think it is. I think it's a lot more efficient than maybe I've painted tonight. But you have an opportunity to collect on that margin between those two prices. Somewhere between $100 and $140 million is what you're going to leave on the table, plus every homeowner in this community is going to pay $133 a month for 1,000 kilowatt hours forever. And they're the ones that are going to be the big loser. They may not realize it. They may not have dug into this deep enough, and if I was a regular citizen of Destin, I wouldn't have either, but I got pushed into it. You're leaving a bunch of money on the table. But yes, you're taking a very big risk, and it's something you're going to have to weigh, because you'll get the blame for it no matter what. Now, don't get me wrong, the city of Destin cannot go bankrupt if you make a bad decision here. The bondholders that finance that power company, which I assume you'll set up as a separate business or resell it to someone else, are the ones taking the risk. It's not really the city of Destin. It's not really you, but you'll be held responsible for it, I'm sure. I've got
Can you wrap
pages
that?
of data, but I'm going to wrap it up.
Appreciate it, Scott.
And make the mayor happy with me. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fisher.
Marcy Bell. I always try to keep everything short. I have a degree in finance, and I follow everything that you guys say up here in reference to present value and future value. But I want to ask all of you one question. Do you own your own home, or do you rent? And if you own your own home, why did you choose to buy instead of lease? That's my first question. My second question to each of you is, how old were you 30 years ago? How old are you going to be 30 years from now? The decisions that you're making today are for the kids and the younger people of this city. 30 years from now, I'm going to be 80 years old. The decisions you make today aren't going to affect me 30 years from now. And then they're going to be in another place arguing about the same thing if you follow through with another 30-year plan. So I would ask all of you to take that into consideration, that the votes that you make today, they're not about you or me. They're about the kids that are in the high schools and the young families that are here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcy. Next. All right. Seeing no further comment, Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. So there are a couple things that I just wanted to bring forward. I've actually reviewed what was then called Ordinance Number 048, and that's the original contract and ordinance that we set following that contract back in 1986, I believe is what year it was. And it's interesting because the structure of the contract is very similar to what we see today. In fact, the Section 3 talks about the right to operate, and in it, it actually talks about how we have the right to essentially erect, suspend, install, extend, renew, repair, maintain, operate, and conduct. And we can erect a system of poles, towers, conduit. I mean, it goes on and on and on about the different options that we had until recently. And I see you've got something on your mind.
You're saying it's the right to renew, replace, install, construct, operate, et cetera. Those are Gulf's rights under the franchise.
Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying
Sure,
that.
yeah,
Because
it's a little confusing between grantee and grantor.
it is. And so then I'm looking through that and I'm thinking, wait a minute. If we do have the right to purchase, and now I'm confused because I thought that was the section that actually dealt with us actually able to purchase.
Section
it as well.
5 is the section you're looking for, council member.
Okay. Well, my whole point of this is that this has been a contract that we've been in since 1986. We've had a couple of extensions. We've been in these negotiations now for at least 2 years. I'm not going to go into the propaganda that was emailed to our public, also to myself, that was completely misleading, as was their website. And you weren't affected by it, I was, and so were others up here. But the main concern I have is, obviously, we want the best deal for the people and the citizens of this city. And I couple all of this information and the rights and the options that we've had with how that's severely being limited going forward. I then look at the rates, and we continue. I just pulled up what looks to be the most recent rates in the state of Florida. It's July, and Gulf Power is still the third highest. And I looked Florida Power and Light, we would save almost $35 a month based on 1,000 kilowatt hours. And, Mr. Wood's comments about the air conditioning change, heck, I probably need that too, because my bills, I have to keep the air at 77, and it's freaking a $500 bill. So something needs to look at. But think how much more he would save even with a different rate comparison. The mayor brought up earlier a feasibility, or he didn't bring up the feasibility study. He was discussing the fact that we needed to do some investigation and to look at the cost of things, et cetera. And I recall this feasibility study that we had done in August of last year that was very thorough and provided a lot of information. Now, granted, its focus was on us purchasing it and running it ourselves, which I think we decided or talked about at the time that's not something that we were interested in doing. But it does provide some very good relevant numbers that I think answer a lot of questions in terms of cost and value, et cetera. But where I was going with that was, and I lost my complete train of thought there. I was on a roll and it's gone. Yes, I've lost it. But something along the lines of the fact that we've got to look at what makes the most sense and what is going to be the most fair outcome to the people of this town. and I just remembered where I was going, and it was the fact that I think a lot of folks, and this is what I heard during the election and the emails and everything, when I would get back with people, when we talked about exercising our right to purchase, they automatically assumed that that meant we were going to take over and run it as the city of Destin. And I explained to them that personally that was not what I wanted at all. That when I looked at that, I looked at it as the opportunity for us to get it and then let Duke Energy run it, or Chelco, or someone else in the area, and that we would open it up that way, because I did not feel, and I still don't feel, that we're in a position to run a power company. I mean, clearly, in my opinion. So I think there are a lot of misconceptions out there about this whole thing, thanks in part to a tremendous marketing task and job and effort by some of those PACs. So really, I think everyone needs to look at the big picture. And for me, this has just been an ugly thing that's gotten uglier. And I hate that it's come to the arguments and the venom that has gone back and forth. But we need to ultimately look at what's right for this city. And I'm inclined to go towards exercising our right at this point, because based on all the information I've collected, all the research, the data, the man from Winter Park that came in and discussed how they did that themselves, I think that may be our best option at this point.
Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. Unlike Skip, everyone that I spoke with, ran into the store, the docks, the road, whatever, wanted to know, what is the true story? What are we doing with purchasing Gulf Power? And when I would explain it to them, they would be behind us 100%. So we didn't realize that, what was going on. And I said, well, really can't discuss it open in public, just like Gulf Power. They're not coming up here and openly tell the public or tell us what their tactics are, what they're going to do to negotiate, what their plan is, what their attorney's plans are, what their plan of attack is. They're not going to tell you that. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you what we've been talking about or what our plans are. But when you get a hold of somebody and you can go one-on-one on them and explain it to them, what you're shooting for, they're behind you 100%. But since the election, Gulf Power just went radio silence. There's no more phone calls, no more, calling people, filling them full of BS as far as, their power bills and Gulf Power and all that, and giving them their side of it, asking them the questions that they wanted to ask and get the answers to, and then send everybody out this flyer saying that 90% of people or 88% of the citizens of Destin, don't want to buy Gulf Power. But when I ask my questions, I get 100% of the people want to buy it. So, I really like to hear a little bit more from the public because of what we heard in the past. They don't know the facts. It's just the nature of the beast. They don't do their homework. They just, what they hear on TV or to send in the mail. If I were to say, Jeff, Parker, can y'all please go back to Gulf Power and, tell them to give us the franchises they want, 30 years, no purchase option, nothing. Just, we don't want anything. Just tell them to give us whatever they want, send it to us, make sure we're locked in for the next 500 years paying the highest price power bills. If stuff goes to wind and solar energy and powers are cut, in half, we don't want to play a part of that. We don't want to make sure that our citizens are stuck paying the highest possible power bill available. Go to Gulf Power and make sure, make that happen. Tell them to bring that franchise back to us, because that's what our citizens want us to do. For the next 500 years, they're locked in. They have no other option but Gulf Power. That's it. Whatever they want to charge them, the law allows, that's what they're stuck with. That's what they want. Let's make it happen. But honestly, can't do that. You know, you to listen to some of the public, that's what they want. That's what they want you to do. But they don't know the facts, and they don't do their homework. They listen to the, like say, what Gulf Power wants them to hear. So if it goes down tonight, as if motion's being made to, you know, exercise our right to purchase it, you know, and move in that direction, because the direction we're headed in as far as a franchise agreement with them, we've been butting heads for forever, then I'm going to support that motion if it's made. That's all I have right now, Mayor. Thanks.
Mr. Marler.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm hearing the same people skip here. But let me clarify something. I don't see how you can purchase something or whatever we're going to do and the power bill is going to go down because of Gulf Power. First off, this is, I don't care what somebody said, this is a way to bankrupt a city. The cost at $71 million is BS. You're looking at $100 to $200 million. I don't care how you look at it. Secondly, you're going to still be paying Gulf Power or somebody for the power that you're going to get, because it's got to come from someplace, because we don't have a power plant unless we're going to make one out of the pumping station in the harbor. So we're always going to be paying a lot, and the citizens are not going to get a lower bill, because how are we going to pay for that 100 to 200 million? You also have to deal with the employees. Gulf Power and all the power companies are part of a union. My first cousin works for Georgia Power, and let me tell you, he's told me a lot about unions, and I don't like unions. So, and unions usually tend to make sure that their people are making a whole lot more money than our interim city manager is right now per year. This has just gotten out of hand. We started out basically just to try to get underground utilities, and now we're trying to buy the dadgum place, buy it and for an option. We're never going to be able to afford to buy Gulf Power. Okay, Gulf Power is being bought. Okay, we don't even know if our rates are going to go down when they purchase it, when the purchase goes through. The basic thing is that I'm kind of like with Tuffy, what he said a little earlier about the petition. The citizens elected us to do their will. It seems like up here what we're doing is the will of certain council members who think that we're going to get away with this. It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. I am just so frustrated and upset that this council is trying to negotiate something that's never going to be negotiated properly. I mean, fine, y'all. If you want to buy it, sell it to somebody else, fine. But this council member is not going to listen to what we're going through now. We started out with just one simple thing: get underground utilities, get Gulf Power to work with us. No, now we've got Gulf Power working against us, and it's never going to change. Distribution. We were talking about distribution centers and stuff. They're not going to give up theirs. We're going to have to build some. How much do you think they're going to cost? The citizens do not realize that they're not going to get a lower power bill. I would love to see a $130 power bill. I'm sorry, Preble's is higher than mine, and Jim's is lower than mine. I'm somewhere in the middle of that, and I'm on the levelized bill. But we're fighting a windmill. That's the best way to do it. We're fighting a windmill, and the windmill's going to win. We're fighting Goliath, and this time Goliath is going to win. Because what we're going to do is bankrupt this city. If this was the entire county we were talking about, there might be a chance. If the county went on board and we all, as a county, purchased it. But it ain't going to work this way. I'm sorry. I got more to say, but it wouldn't be very nice. So I'll stop there.
So far, everybody's had a round. I'll allow for a second round if anyone wants to speak again. Mr. Morgan and Mr. Destin, you haven't said anything up to this point, so you guys got the floor if you'd like.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe I've past several months, I've made my position pretty clear. I certainly understand some of Mr. Dixon's concerns, and I share some of those same feelings. But I have made my position clear, and no, I don't think that Gulf Power is this evil company, but they are an incredibly expensive energy company by state standards, by national standards, and I don't appreciate the way they've negotiated by employing a Washington, D.C. lobbyist. That goes back to my question about negotiating in good faith. But at the end of the day, they're an incredibly expensive power company. Yeah, I made my position clear. Thanks.
Mr. Destin, Chief Negotiator, Mr. Destin.
Yeah, there's nothing fun about a process where you're doing your best to try to get the best value for the citizens of Destin. And if Warren Buffett had this option, and if Bill Gates had this option, it would have been exercised decades ago. The reason is it is insanely profitable to sell power within the city of Destin. Now, I've never once advocated that we go and operate it ourselves. I'm wary of operating it through a third party, but flipping it and selling it to one of their competitors and getting in a more favorable franchise has always been an option that was appealing to me. But it is a pickle that I find myself in. I represent constituents that are not small government, they're anti-government. I just had a constituent come up here and call us communists and then storm out of the room. I mean, I can't reason or logic with that. It's an emotional-based opinion that he has, and I can't persuade him, because at the end of the day, they're trying to screw us. And the question is, how much are we going to let them? I mean, I sympathize with Bob's point. Bob said, we can't even get the potholes filled. I sympathize with the deep mistrust of our city government, because coming to the table, most of our constituents go, you guys have one job, reviewing development. I've seen how you guys did that. What happens if you get a hold of my power? I sympathize with that rational feeling. I do. I really, really do. And to Bob's point, my father was on the committee that wrote the charter, because he said after 3 times of trying to defeat incorporation, he said, well, if they're going to incorporate, I better be there to make sure that what they come up with is a limited government, and that we operate within the confines of an idea of a government that is very limited. This is not an easy position. I have spent nights and nights, like I've got bags under my eyes. You lie in bed thinking about this, because there's no real good answers. If I go and make a motion tonight to exercise this option, even though I know it is the best for my citizens, even though I know I'm 33. Where are we going to be in 30 years, like Marcy asked? I'm going to be 63. I plan to still be alive. No offense. Everybody who's been, that's against this stuff is in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that are not going to be around in 20 years when this thing comes up to be renegotiated, or in 15 years when this thing comes back to be renegotiated. I plan on being around. It is long term, and I don't really look forward to having an effigy burned, and they drag me out with they come show up with pitchforks and torches after I go and vote. It could happen. I mean, I got called a communist by Jim Wood, and he storms out of the building like he told us something. There's a very anti-government sentiment, and I sympathize it. I share it in some circumstances. But guys, they are coming to eat our lunch, and the question is, how much are we going to let them do it? You go, at some point, I had to look at my constituents, and they're going to say, well, I don't care if I pay 4 times what everybody else is, as long as you're not running it, and I can flip on and they turn the light, and the light comes on. That's a bit irrational, though. It's very irrational, because it's not necessarily exactly the way it could play out. So I'll yield the floor. I know Rodney, I think, probably wants to speak, but this is a terrible, terrible pickle we find ourselves in.
Mr. Braden.
Again, though, we're not running it. Won't be running it. So I mean, the citizens can't say, you know, I don't care what the bill is as long as you're not running it, because we're not running it anyway. I mean, the people across the Bray, they're, is that Chelco? They've got lights. They've got, you know, no problem at all. I'd hope some of these people don't run and get on council and increase my power bill by 4 times as much, and my gas bill by 4 times as much, and my cable bill by 4 times as much, and my taxes by 4 times as much. That'd be scary. How many, I know you'd sent us a document before, but correct me if I'm wrong, don't we have at least 6 different places we can buy power from, or that Duke Energy, if they took over the power company in Destin, that they could buy power from, or Choco, or Florida Power and Lights, if they took over the power company in Destin? Aren't there like 6 different places they could buy power from?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Braden, let me break that into 2 parts, because there's two parts there. One is when you say where they could buy power from. If you're talking about buying wholesale power, there's a bunch more than 6. There's a bunch more than 6. You could buy from Power South, you could buy from Gulf Power, you could buy from Southern Company, you could buy from Duke Energy, Tampa Electric, the Florida Municipal Power Agency, possibly Seminole Electric, JEA, Orlando Utilities, City of Tallahassee, City of Lakeland, FPL, Duke Energy Florida, any number of merchant power producers, either here or in Georgia or in Peninsular Florida, which is that part of Florida east of the Apalachicola in electric terms. There's a whole lot more than 6 places where you could buy wholesale power from. In terms of who could operate it, the answer is similar in that it's unknown. I think you'd have to realistically expect that FPL probably would not buy it if their parent company owned all the rest of Gulf Power. They probably wouldn't. So you could probably take them out. But Tampa Electric Company, which is owned by a different company called Emera, that's their upstream parent, like Southern is the parent of Gulf, I think they'd be interested. I think Duke would be interested. I think any number of individual folks would be interested. You had a company called Enco that already expressed interest in actually buying it and operating it. But there are others. I mean, there's a bunch of, in the United States of America, there are roughly 240 investor-owned power companies like Gulf, Georgia Power, FPL, Tampa Electric, Duke, and so on. There's 930-odd cooperatives and 2,100 municipals. Yeah. So it's a model that is known to work. It's a model that's known to work in the state of Florida. There's about 33 retail-serving municipal electric companies and municipal electric systems in the state of Florida. Now, conceivably, there's even ways that could be worked out through something called an interlocal agreement, which is specifically authorized under Chapter 163. But that's a little bit out there. But the answer to your question is, there's a lot more than 6 where you buy wholesale power, and there's a lot more than 6 who could come in and run it. And you don't really know until you ask, hey, how much y'all give us to do this? And then there's the other aspect of it where you could own it and hire it out. Winter Park had, I've been told 4, I'm not sure what the exact number is. Basically, Winter Park had 2 employees associated with its electric system for the first 10 years after they acquired the system from the predecessor of Duke Energy Florida. They hired out, buying the wholesale power, keeping the lights on, keeping the lines up, doing the billing, doing the books, and everything else. They hired it out. 10 years after they brought most of the employees back in-house as city employees. But you don't ever have to do that. And in the meantime, they used they used some of their surplus revenues to continue an ongoing undergrounding project that's still going on. And 2, during the first 10 or 11 years, the average customer paid about $1,000, like $975 less than the comparable Duke Energy, Progress Energy, Florida customer. And sitting here tonight, their rates are $14 a month less than Duke Energy Florida's. You got options.
Do you, the lines, apparently the lines that feed Destin, the power from Destin, come from Panama City.
I suspect they come from 3 different directions. I don't know, from Panama City, Pensacola, and probably from the north, although I can't tell you I know that for a fact. So the answer, well, this may answer your question. They are Gulf Power transmission lines, and that's for sure. They are the rates paid to use those transmission lines by hypothesis. If you were to buy it, buy wholesale power to be shipped in to, wheeled in is the word we use, wheeled in to the substations and sent out to customers. The rates paid for the use of those transmission facilities are subject to regulation by the United States Federal Energy Regulatory Commission.
And so,
on a non-discriminatory basis, Gulf Power has to pay the same rates that anybody else would have to pay them. The Chelco, I'm sure, gets some of their power over Southern Company lines, and they pay the same transmission rates that Gulf Power implicitly pays.
so if, say, Chelco was, say everybody in the city of Destin was getting their power bill from Chelco instead of Gulf Power, Gulf Power will still be receiving some kind of fee for the power that's coming over those transmission lines to Destin.
Yeah, sure they would. They'd be getting paid a fair, regulated, compensatory rate for the use of their facilities.
But that's regulated.
And which is, it's built into their rates today. We call it the transmission unit cost. And they'd be getting something a lot like that same amount for the use of their transmission lines to get the wholesale power in here.
So that's, just like you said, that was all regulated through the state?
Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. Transmission of electricity with very, very few, if any, exceptions in the United States of America is transaction in interstate commerce, and as such, it is subject to regulation by the United States Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. It's a regulated rate.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. That was round 2 for you. Round 2 for Mr. Dixon.
I wish Mr. Morgan was in here for this part of it, because basically what I was going to say is that I think during this election and during the time that you know, the power company or whoever was doing work for the power company was out there beating our butts, I think Mr. Morgan took it on the chin really hard, and considering everybody up here friends, that killed me. I do not agree with their tactics. I do not agree with the way that we've been treated. And you know, when Ms. Bell was up here earlier and thinking about the children, I think you got to look at that in 2 ways. And that you think about the children in the fact that we want to make sure that they are having the same advantages that we have, and we want to make sure that we do everything we can to you know, protect them and do everything we can to make sure that they are taken care of down the road. But part of that, I think, too, is making sure that we're not saddling them with something that they can maybe never get out from under. And you know, I'm certainly not trying to talk anybody out of anything up here tonight, because to be honest with you, I'm kind of sitting here on the fence with it myself. But I would hope that if we do tonight adopt this option to purchase, that does not end the discussion. That worries me, in the fact that there's a language in here that I saw that basically said that if we did adopt this, that it would make it almost virtually impossible to sit down and negotiate from that point forward.
Mr. Mayor, can I address that? One, as a practical matter, any 2 parties can continue to negotiate any time. 2, if you are asking about the language in Mr. Griffin's letter that says if you exercise an option There's some law that says that becomes a bilateral contract. Was that what you were asking about? I I saw these cases for the first time this afternoon, but two things. One, I discussed this with a board-certified local government attorney that I've known for a really long time, and he practices in the municipal utility arena. And one, when Winter Park did theirs, they did continue to talk. Now, they ultimately bought theirs, but they bifurcated the process. They had a determination of the price before they decided to purchase. Same thing in South Daytona. South Daytona did have a referendum. The common knowledge, and I believe this to be true without having done the primary research myself, is that FPL put on an all-out PR blitz and swung the referendum against purchasing. But the point is, it was a right to purchase. The price was determined first. The decision to purchase was determined second. A few minutes ago when I was talking, I made the point that an option is different from a right to purchase. The cases that Mr. Griffin sent me all involve options to purchase. You have a right to purchase. There's nothing in the contract that says, once exercised, this is an irrevocable contract. You have a right to purchase it. There's no reason, as a matter in my, short-term analysis, there's no reason to believe that this is an option. It's not an option. It doesn't say option. It says you have a right to purchase. You can do whatever you want to do before you exercise the right to purchase. So that's one. Two, in practical terms, as far as I'm concerned, we ought to keep talking to them, and there's no reason on earth that we can't. I'm going to add one more thing, and that is this. However you cut it, your system is really valuable. If it weren't, Gulf Power would not have devoted the effort and resources to their efforts to keep you from exercising the option or even doing anything other than just re-upping with them. It's really valuable. If you got to the end of the price determination phase and it was more than you wanted to spend, it is inconceivable to me. And I've been doing this stuff for 39 years, energy in Florida. It is inconceivable to me that they would not say, or that NextEra, or Gulf Power as a subsidiary of NextEra would not say, we are so glad to have you back. Here's your franchise. By the way, it no longer has a right to purchase, but welcome back.
Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Dixon, done? Okay, Mr. Marler, second round. I didn't see you up there.
That sounds ominous.
Setting you up for the kill. Go ahead, Mr. Martin.
Okay. Let's try it this way. Winter Park, how big is Winter Park?
Almost exactly the same size as Destin.
Okay.
15,000 electric customers, which is almost identical to the number of customers here.
Okay, and the average power bill per month since they purchased?
I can't tell you what it's been for each of the last 14 years. 14 years, 2005 through 2018. I can tell you what it is in July of 2018. For 1,000 kilowatt hours, including the franchise fee, it's $113.99. For 1,000, for 1,200, it is, and I got to interpolate this in the graph. For 1,200, it's right at $140.
Okay, and how much do they purchase it for, and how much does it cost them per year to run it?
I don't know the answer to those questions.
That's where the mayor's coming from. There's a lot of data that needs to be figured out. Purchase option, fine, okay?
Right to purchase.
Right to purchase. Yeah, I just love the way we change the words around. Right to purchase, option to purchase.
Right to purchase is the language in the contract.
That sounds like Skip wants to weigh in a little bit.
You can go next, Skip.
The basic problem that I see is that, and the mayor hit it on the head. We need more. We need to be able to tell the citizens, and Rodney's right too. We need to be able to tell the citizens how much they're actually going to pay, not based upon Winter Park, not based upon other businesses, but exactly based upon what we're going to do. Because when we started this, when Mayor Fisher started this negotiation, Gulf Power was Gulf Power, part of Southern Company. Now Gulf Power is being purchased by another company. We don't even know what their plans are in this case. And yet we're I don't know whether it's Gulf Power is pushing or we're pushing to go ahead and get this done. And like I said earlier, we were after originally underground utilities and some other little perks to get started, and then all of a sudden now we've got all kinds of stuff going on, and I still cannot see how the citizens of Destin are going to get a lower power bill based upon what we're trying to do here. The biggest problem that I face, and the reason that I'm opposed to what we're trying to do is I actually feel that between us and them, we're both trying to pull the strings, and we're not giving the citizens the due diligence that they really need. I just don't understand how we're going to get a lower power bill in today's age. I mean, it's almost like, I've got a backup generator at home that runs off gas. Heck, I'd rather, my gas is cheap per thermal unit. I might as well just turn off the Gulf Power and just use my gas generator. It runs my entire house. But do I really want to do that because it makes a little noise? No, because I like Gulf Power. I like what's happening. But I just don't understand how this city, with not quite a $14 million a year budget, is going to buy a company and then turn it over. Or we're going to have an option to purchase, then we're going to franchise it out again. I mean, we still don't know what the new owners are going to do. That's where my problem is we keep talking about how Gulf Power is the third largest and they got us over a barrel. But what is the new company going to do that's going to buy Gulf Power? And they have the option to do a lot of things to help us out too. And well, this is my other point. We just we've just gotten to the point where I just think, and I just think that Mr. Wood was wrong in the way he addressed us, but we're trying to push stuff that the citizens are not. I don't know which citizens Mr. Braden's talking to, but the citizens myself and Mr. Overdale have talked to don't want us to be even involved in running a power company. I mean, we don't even have. The only thing we offer the citizens right now is recreation, because we don't run the fire department. We don't have a police department, which is actually the reason we have a low tax base. So I just don't understand how this is going to work, and I just cannot support any of this tonight. I'm sorry.
Skip Obadier, would you like to make a comment? All right, Skip, I give you a chance.
Mayor?
Go ahead, Ms. Ramswell.
Oh, I'm sorry.
PR, stand by. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. We've gone for an hour and a half now, and we've talked about this and discussed it. But I honestly think that, and I don't know if this is the drop dead date, we got to make a decision tonight. But it sure sounds to me like, and Rodney's come up with some interesting points with people that he's talked to. I've come up with some points that people that I've talked to. I think we need to have the citizens of Destin come out and talk to us and tell us what they want us to do. And maybe that means that we've got to go to a city meeting at the community center or whatever. And if there's an opportunity to do that, then I think we should do that and let the citizens of Destin tell us what they want. It's not what we want. It's not what Preble wants or Rodney wants or I want or you want. It's what the citizens of Destin want. And so let's bring them out, let's talk to them, and let's listen to them. And that's what I would advocate. If we can do that, fine. If we can't, well then, at the end of the day, I'm not there, so I can't vote, but at the end of the day, I would vote against I would vote for exercising this option to not buy the power company. Thank you.
Yeah.
Negatives.
Well,
Yeah.
Ms. Ramswell.
Yeah, because I have all that data from the feasibility study and Winter Park and everything, Kyron, you had mentioned you were curious as to the different rates. According to that study, we were looking at 55.20 per megawatt hour, which would be below the current price of the bulk power supply for Gulf.
Is
And
that
that's
since
what
the
was
rate
estimated.
reduction?
No, because this was done in August. I don't know if he did that based on knowing it was going to happen, but it would be negligible, right?
The rate reduction is the $8.61 rate reduction is a flowback of what's called unprotected accumulated deferred income taxes that came about as a result of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017. That $8.61 bill credit, which is applied against the fuel charge, just because that's how the parties agreed to do it, goes away at the end of December. There are a couple of new smaller credits that are kicking in, but overall the tax impacts, the tax cut benefits are going to go away. Rates are going to go back up, not by a full $8. I don't know yet what the final bill for January is going to be, but it's going to be higher than it is today. And I was going to say, the mayor and I are in complete agreement on trying to get this stuff fully vetted in public. You know, you got all kinds of subjects. You got how much is it going to cost to purchase? How much is it going to cost to operate? What's the bulk power supply cost going to be? What are the liability implications? What about undergrounding? What about debt? What about exposure to bankruptcy? You had a finance expert come in here and say, it's going to be debt of the electric system, backstopped by the revenues of the electric system. That's it. It's not going to be City of Destin debt. Or it's going to be only backstopped by revenues. You can't go bankrupt. At least that's what your bond expert came in and said. The whole question of what you're going to do with the money is a completely separate question. You know, you could cut the cost down to the bone, not do undergrounding, and give them whatever you save back to customers. You could give part of it back to customers in lower rates. You could reduce. You could do undergrounding with part of it. You could do whatever you want to do with renewables. You have a lot of options. There are a lot of subjects. You know, I'm completely serious when I say you probably ought to have 8 workshops on this, half-day workshops, like Mr. Overdyer said, at the community center or whatever, and make people come out and just and say, look, folks, this is really important. This is your future. The problem you got tonight is if you don't have some form of binding agreement, final binding warranted backstop by next Friday, you lose your bargaining power. And you can keep talking, this is America, no matter what anybody else says, parties can negotiate as long as they want to negotiate, and there's no reason to think this context would be any different.
Mr. Destin.
Kyron, I'd love to convince you, but it's probably not going to happen. I thought you were present for the last 2 years of this debate, but apparently not.
No, you haven't.
I'm sorry, Kyron. Okay. All right. Lay it out practically for us, Chef, if you can. Well, before we get there, because the mayor says, well, let's just take what they offered us right now. What they've offered us right now is a 5-year vest where we get one opportunity to take a bite at the apple at 5 years, and if we fail, then we're signed up for another 10 years where we don't get to...
That'd be on us, though.
Naturally, but I mean, we've already been down this road because we've had a previous city council that had the leadership that was about to give all of this away before we got here. I mean, this new election went through, I came in, and basically the second or third meeting after we got elected, we get the new 30-year franchise thrown in our face, and guess what? The purchase provision is not there. Means this council was asleep at the wheel, or the staff was asleep at the wheel.
Don't blame them,
Why not?
because it's council's, this is their job.
We've got
The
advisors.
former manager actually said it slipped through the cracks, was his
So,
response.
so we know that it's within the capacity of the city of Destin to miss dates, miss deadlines, just not be paying attention. Because that's 5 years from now, we're going to have a lot more stuff we're debating about. And if we miss that deadline, or if we have this debate again, you're signing up for another 10 years. And when Kyron said, well, wait, man, we haven't even seen what these people, next year is going to come in. They could do some good stuff. I find that very highly unlikely because of the crazy premium they're paying to acquire Gulf Power. The reason they're paying a crazy premium is because NextEra owns Florida Power and Light. They own a handful of others. They're trying to consolidate their power within the state of Florida, and geographically they're going to own a lot of it after they get Gulf Power. And they have home field advantage at the Public Service Commission in Tallahassee, and they're not going to be coming in here paying a 29 times price to earning ratio, a killer premium that basically nobody pays, to come in and help us. They're not.
Privately owned like Southern, or?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. They do not answer to their customers, they answer to shareholders in the same way that Chelco is an energy cooperative. The actual shareholders of that company are the customers, so they actually have the incentive to take care of the people who are using their network. Here, we're a fiefdom. We're the serfs, and they're the guys in charge. They're the noble class, and basically they're about to run us into the ground.
So I got a question for you, Chad.
For shareholder value.
The stuff the mayor brought up.
Microphone, Mr. Marler.
The stuff that's been brought up about the feasibility studies and stuff, why didn't we start doing that at the same time we were negotiating with Gulf Power on this stuff?
I think the answer to that is you did a feasibility study. I don't know all the facts. I wasn't really involved during that time. I was involved in May of 2016 at the literal 11th hour when you all said let's get a 2-year extension, which we did. And then I was out of the picture until after Mr. Harrington and Mr. Warren did the feasibility study. You did a feasibility study. My best understanding of what happened is there was a lot of skepticism about the results of that feasibility study, and nothing further happened. I got brought in sometime after that to continue talking to Gulf, but the endeavor there was to continue talking to Gulf, and here we are tonight, 8 days from the expiration of your right to purchase.
All right, so Parker, what did you want to do?
I'm trying to lay out what our real options are. The mayor wants to go with signing what was sent to us today. There are independent issues with what they've included in other clauses with regards to transferability, regarding assignability, issues that I would be very, very cautious to just simply adopt, because what they've done in there is inserted poison pills and basically trying to neuter us in the future if we ever tried to exercise our option. It's in there. Oh, sure, you got a purchase option, but we've basically handcuffed you to where you'll never be able to do much with it. Purchase right.
Thank you.
That's correct. There is a big difference between a right and an option.
And
It's legal.
Jeff said there was 3 scenarios.
And in that purchase right, that gives you the capability to negotiate.
There's a 4th scenario I forgot earlier, too. There was an offer in their letter to extend for 2 years, so there was a 4th scenario.
And then then Parker, you could...
Yeah, we could extend for 2 years, get it in another election cycle, and we've got NextEra, who doesn't have the debt issues that Southern Company has, and they can just stroke checks. Instead of $250,000, they'll spend $500,000, $750,000 on the next go-round to get us thrown out of office and call us everything from secret liberals to communists to everything else. I mean, somebody paid for what ended up in everybody's mailboxes, and
I'm talking to the 2 attorneys here, and I'm trying to figure out...
I thought you were talking to me. I'll shut up.
I'm talking to both. I'm asking questions because you guys were involved here. So the 4th option gives us 2 years. let's just drop the election problem for a second and look at the current better feasibility study and all the other stuff that you've been that the mayor's been talking about. And even if we just if you were to negotiate a year and a half instead of a 2-year or 1 year, I mean, to give, you know, I want to be convinced that what we're doing is right, and you guys, you're the attorney people that have been doing this. So I mean, and I, you know, then the mayor and you and Shep here have been doing it all. So,
yeah.
You know, so.
Okay, so I got Mr. Morgan and Ms. Ramswell. You can take a swing at this. We can, and I'll make a last defining comment, and we can, seeing how we've kind of butchered Robert's Rules of Orders by having all the discussion before we even had a motion, we'll just continue in this this form that we're in. So I gave everybody 2 opportunities to speak, so I just wanted to extend that to Ms. Ramswell or Mr. Morgan, and if not, then I'll make my final closing statement, or you can make a motion one way or the other. You guys have anything else to say?
Well, I've got one question for Chef. Chef, what's the danger in not exercising the option tonight and pushing it to Monday? Is there any danger?
No. No, I mean, the drop dead date is next Friday, September 21. And just to lay that out for you, you know, here is my concern. You know, I'm your all's lawyer, right? My goal in life is to, when I'm here anyway, is to protect you all and get the maximum value I can for the citizens and businesses of Destin. My concern is that if you don't have either, if you don't exercise the option, exercise the right to purchase, or have an absolute ironclad extension or new franchise agreement in some form, but absolute ironclad, you know, double secret probation warranted as having all necessary approvals to be fully legally effective by next Friday. I'm sure you all have heard the old jokes about the settlement negotiations that go on until 5:01 p.m. on the day that the statute of limitations runs. There you could be, and Gulf would say, oh, you know, we're really sorry, but you have not exercised the franchise, your right to purchase. That is gone. You're out of luck. So the danger is not tonight versus Monday. The danger is by next Friday, you either need to exercise the right to purchase or have something ironclad, fully warranted, unequivocally binding on the other party that you got what you got.
In your hand now, don't you have that from them, their last offer back to you? A 2-year extension is what they offered, and a 5-year right to purchase, and an additional 15-year right to purchase. Isn't that in your hand right now?
The answer is no, because it's not warranted.
Okay.
And in fact, the letter...
And it wouldn't be warranted unless we voted to warrant it, correct?
No, it's not your choice. It's not your decision. Ultimately, it's, as Mr. Griffin pointed out in his letter, it requires the approval of NextEra Energy. And that's the backstop that you ultimately need.
And did they offer you a timeline to provide that?
I asked about that this afternoon and was told that Mr. Griffin had not had any direct communications with NextEra. He believes that people in the executive suite have had such communications and that he will ask them about it.
So if they respond to you tomorrow with a warranted offer, we can decide on Monday? Or
yeah, or you could decide to exercise the right to purchase on Monday. Yeah, you could take the 2-year extension. You know, I look at the practicalities. I don't know. I look at the economics. The political stuff is not my department.
You're going to have the same 4 options on Monday, basically.
Right.
Mr. Braden, you've already talked twice. Should I give you a third swing?
Please.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and make that motion that we go ahead and exercise our right to purchase.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion and we got a second. We've had discussion ad nauseum, except I get one more chance.
Mayor, real quick before you are done, Skip did buzz us about 5-10 minutes ago, and we just told him we'd wait till him go last, so he didn't have
Nope,
to keep
he
him.
can't go last, I am. So
Okay,
he can
so-
go now. Skip, if you want to go now.
He's in Orlando.
Yeah, he might have bad cell
League of Cities
reception.
meeting.
All right, in the interest of expediting this, I'll just make my final comments then, because we have a motion, a second, that all the discussion. And I want to do this on the public record so the people of this community can see it. First of all, I think having 7 people make a decision of this magnitude, might be political suicide for those individuals, but that's the pants they got to wear. I don't get to vote, so I'm not in jeopardy in that realm. There's a right way and a wrong way. You up here, Skip?
Yeah. So I don't think I can make a motion. Is that correct?
A motion's already been made, and we have a second, sir.
Okay, never mind. I'll go.
And you can't vote, but you can make a comment, because I'm about to make my last one, and you're entitled to one more, I think. Nope. You're at 2-2, so you're out of the loop. Go ahead if you like, because I was going to let Mr. Braden say something, but he was just making a motion. Go ahead.
Bada bing.
I made Skip mad, I guess. All right, there's a wrong way and a right way to do everything. I think that the offer that's not completed or warranted yet gives us the timeline that we need. That's all I've been pushing for. I want forensic analysis. I want to be able to put together a product that we can take to the citizens of this community, apart from the propaganda that took place during the election process, where we can weigh and evaluate everything so we can make good, conscientious decisions on what's best for our community. In that also needs to be discussion whether this purchase of this utility, if the intent is to feed the pig, basically, feed the city budget, pay for the debt that's on it, but we're going to tax our people through our power bill. This city has no way to generate money through other than ad valorem taxes, and the small communities that have recently purchased utility companies have done great things for their city, but with the cost of the purchase, undergrounding, tune of $50 million, budget needs of the city because the city's going to own the power company, none of that adds up to lower rates. So that whole discussion about lower rates, I think we're not being honest with the citizenry. So, but if the value of buying the company is going to be a net windfall for the community, and it's going to help pay for the budget, it's going to get us the undergrounding, it's going to be worthwhile spending the money and worthwhile long-term for the people that'll still be here after I'm dead and gone, I'm okay with that. I really am. Me and Shep have talked about it many times. I'm not saying that this exercising the right to purchase will be bad, but I want to know what my chances are and the risk of it, of this being good for our community. And the last point I'm going to make is, if it's that great, if it's that good, then all of us here and our staff and our attorneys ought to be able to put together a package to show people the facts and give it to them and let them decide who they write their power bill check to, knowing well in their minds that this is going to benefit them and their community. For 7 people to make a vote, and I don't get the vote, and I'm speaking as a citizen, I think I have the right to evaluate this monumental decision and cast my vote on a November or a March or a May or whenever we decide to do something like that. That's how I think good governance should take place. But I don't vote. I'm just a citizen tonight.
Mayor, actually, you'll be the tie-breaking vote since Skip's not here. Councilmember Braden, is your motion actually to pass Resolution 18-31, exercising the option, or just for clarity's sake?
Yes, that is correct. But with that said, we also have the ability to have these workshops and educate the public and get the public's input. The motion made tonight is not a motion that we're just going to move forward and purchase it and all negotiations stop. That's it. We're moving full force and we're going to purchase it come hell or high water. That's not the motion. The motion is to exercise that right so we don't lose it, and in the process still get the input from the citizens and have our workshops.
If we sign a warranted agreement, we still have that option.
Or the extension, the 2-year extension of what you got now, which leaves you able to exercise any time within the 2 years without notice provisions.
And the potential legal challenges that might come down the pipe, could you just reword your motion on the record to be to pass Resolution 18-31?
Yes, that is my motion to pass Resolution 18-31.
Second stand. I'd like to actually point out that I've heard a couple times tonight that we need to do things so that the public's involved and we need to take a look at this data and this research. And I'd like to point out that I've sat up here now 5 years, or going on 5 years, and I have sat through workshops where the public has come and discussed this. We've had multiple city council meetings that have been advertised and the public has come. I don't know offhand how many workshops were devoted specifically to this topic, but we've had them. We've had presentations from Harrington and from Winter Park that went into deep detail and research with statistics and facts and information. And all of that is available to anyone online through our website. It's just a matter of doing the research. So it kind of bothers me that I'm hearing that the public hadn't been involved when we have just above and beyond tried to involve everybody. I mean, I even wrote about this on my website, on Facebook, and everything to try to get even more people involved. So I want to make that clear that we've really, at least since I've been on this council, have really made a concerted effort to try to get the public involved and know what's going on.
So are you insinuating that my idea of having a referendum means that the people don't know enough about it and that this council does?
I'm not insinuating that at all. That may be what you're inferring, but that's not what I'm insinuating. That's I believe, I'm not sure if it's a charter or if it's a Florida state statute, but that's nothing to do with us.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second.
I have a question for Chef, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
This keeps going back about this 2-year extension and that it's not best, what was the word you used? We haven't warranted it yet?
Gulf has, the question is, in Mr. Griffin's letter, he made the clear point that whatever they do has to be signed off on by NextEra. That raises a big double red flag to me as your lawyer. I don't want you to get to next Friday thinking you got something and NextEra hasn't acted, and they say, oh, well, it wasn't acted. It's a risk, you know, and I'm your lawyer and I'm trying to look out for you. That's all.
So how would we be able to do something if we wanted to go that route?
I pretty much put that back into Mr. Griffin's court this afternoon. He's supposed to be inquiring about it, but you know, it's their, you know, it's their issue, and if they can't deliver, then then you need to, you need to make your own decision, but you're going to have my clear legal advice when you make it, that's all.
Well, I'd like to make a substitute motion that we delay this vote until Monday to find out if this could be a possibility. That gives you Friday and all day Monday before our meeting to possibly go that route. I'll make that as a substitute motion. I don't know if I'll get a second or not.
We have a substitute motion. Do I hear a second? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead. We have a motion. We have a second. We're going to go ahead and cast a vote. Ayes have it. Motion passes. All right, that's all.
Mayor, before we run off, does it help legal counsel to receive instruction to reach out perhaps tomorrow to legal counsel and representatives for Gulf Power to see if there still is wiggle room on what the proposal has been offered? I believe we left with what's been sent to us on Monday, but there's still, I want the lines of communication to stay open, and if that helps being framed up in a motion for you guys, let me know, because I'd be happy to make it.
I don't think we need a motion, but you're asking us to concurrently continue negotiations on a potential franchise along with the process you just started here, correct?
Fact finding.
Yeah, fact finding. Can't negotiate, it's a fact finding.
Well, if you don't need a motion and I'm still the fact finder, I'll do my best to reach out to them, and hopefully we can come back with something that's agreeable on Monday, because you know, I want to do right by the citizenry, but I just don't believe that the offer they've given us right now is something I can stomach. It's just, it wasn't something I could go with. So hopefully I come back with better news on Monday.
Seeing no further business on the agenda, I call this meeting adjourned.